Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. So we are on chapter 10 of Bhagavad Gita. And this chapter is interesting, talking about Bhagwan's Vibhuti. Vibhuti means glories of God, because Arjuna had like, okay, God is everywhere, but can you please tell me some tips how I can see you in the world? So that was the whole idea. And today we are going to do verse 23, but just wanted to review a few more things so that we have a deeper understanding of this chapter. And different swamis bring different points. And one of the points that I heard was a pretty nice one also. It was by Sarvapriyananji, so I thought I'll share it with everybody. So he was, from his perspective, he said, Krishna Bhagwan in this chapter is, he's introducing a wider and deeper concept of God. Because we all grow up, we grew up in India, so we know that India is one of the places in the whole world where the spirituality is like woven through the country. Everybody, some form or the other prays and has connection with God. Whether you believe it in God or not, you can escape it, But everybody has their own ideas and all that. But he brought very interesting points. So he's saying that one way to look at God is, what is my tradition? Because we all grew up in some tradition. Somebody's Arya Samaji, somebody Jain, somebody, and then within Hindus also there are like so many 100 different deities that people follow and all. So in my tradition, it could be Shiva, Vishnu, or Divine Mother, or any other particular form and all that. And or it can be like we see in the temples. Everybody has their favorite temples. They were in India. My mom always went to this Hanuman temple. Some people went to Lakshmi temple, whichever. So he's saying, but and the scriptures also talk about God, and gurus also talk about God. So because he comes from a Swami Vivekananda's tradition, so he said, final goal is, according to Vedanta, you can come from any tradition, anywhere and all that, and believe in anything, but the goal is to see God everywhere. That was a very important point that he said. But it's not that easy. That sentence, you can just say, I want to see God everywhere, but how? Again, we have a confusion. How? So that's where Arjuna's confusion was too. Not even more than confusion, it's like he wants to know some more ideas how I can connect to God everywhere. And since most of us, we cannot see God in everything, and it's easier for us to see it in one form. So he's saying that and in the world religions also, they give you a concept of God. So it is not only just in India, everywhere else also is the same thing. And then, but after we learn the Vedantic principles and who God is and all that, so we realize that God is not just in one form, one name, or one conception, right? He's present in everything and everywhere. So to go to that wider concept of God, that's how this chapter started. But Krishna Bhagwan first said in this chapter earlier on that the entire universe is my manifestation. Okay. So I became, or I transformed myself, you can say. Transform is also not the right word, but you know what I mean, because when we say transform, say did God? No, at that level, nothing transformed, but just a language that he appears as this whole universe, So therefore, I can find God in the universe. And the best example that we know of is gold and ornament, or he was talking about wood. Wood furniture. He said, where is wood? It's everywhere. Every wood furniture is wood, So where do I find wood in a wood furniture? Hey, have the eyes and you will see wood everywhere. So that's what. ऊपर से कुछ भी polish लगा दो, कोई भी paint कर दो, अंदर तो wood ही है वो, like that. Or we can say that all waves are born out of water. You can find water in any wave. So like that, this whole concept of God. So similarly, this universe is born out of God, and you can find God in there. And that's what Krishna Bhagavan is trying to do in this chapter, so that some people who came after some time, you can connect to it now. So that's what main thing he's telling Arjuna, that hey, you can find God everywhere in this universe, but and there are two words that Chinmayanandji has used. It's called transcendental and eminent. Those are very important words in Vedanta. It's like yoga and vibhuti. So when you say transcendental, meaning beyond space, time, and creation, that's the meaning. Nothing gets affected at that stage. And eminent means that God is one who is transcendental, but at the same time, he is in and through everything, everywhere, So that's what. So one is beyond, and this is interesting. It's a contradiction, but both are true, and we have gone through it many times, but I thought this was a very important point. And then he was just saying that how Hindus worship God as both transcendental and eminent. And he's saying that there is no problem for Hindus to say, or Vedantin to say, that God is here and he's everywhere. It's closest to me and it's like a space in and through you. So those are the concepts that we have to churn on more. Then it becomes easier. Because then, like even if you want to pray, we don't need to go anywhere. It's like he's within you. He's everywhere. He's in front of you also. You can say that, whichever way you want to do it. So what he does in this chapter is that he says that, look, this universe is my glory, vibhuti. Vibhuti ko English ka translation hua hai glory, or vistar, like some, Nikhilanandji called it vistar. And he's saying that you can meditate upon God looking at this universe, and say, then Arjuna says, give me some examples. And then that it's easier to see God in the glorious things, and we get wowed and all those things. So that's what, so he gives a list of things, which are in this universe that easier to meditate upon. So Arjun, now one thing that everybody has to keep in mind, that he is talking to Arjuna in this chapter. So there will be examples that Arjun will understand, and sometimes we may not. But we will try our best to go back to some backstory, so we don't think that, hey, what is Krishna Bhagavan saying? I don't understand that. So I, did some research to find out some word, and it was very interesting. So I'll share it with you. And then Krishna says, to Arjuna, okay, these are the things, and that's where I am. Think of there, like specific things. And he obviously, we already know, he pointed out the most glorious, most excellent, most powerful, well-known, famous, all these things. And some of these things, we will know immediately. When he says, hey, Himalaya, I'm Himalaya or Ganga or something, no-brainer, we already know. But other things, we will have to kind of go a little bit deeper why he said that. And then he also mentioned some of the stars and moons and things like that, which we see every day. And we already went through those verses before, and that was really nice how he explained that and all that. And then, so he was just reminding one thing, that this is like an intermediate idea of who God is, that he, final thing is Aham Brahmasmi. Okay, that the goal is to get there, So you start kind of from there, and then means think of God. Suppose if you can't have I can't see God in myself. So first you start, think of God in one way, develop your faith, he said, and devotion like we do. And then see God everywhere. And then finally realize, that everything is within me also. So then it becomes non-dual. As he explained it pretty nicely what this is, So because this is very important thing to say, that whatever that same consciousness, bliss, I am that too. And that's the final goal, And it is everywhere within me also. So this is a little background. And then with that, we will go to the verse that we're going to be doing today. The last verse that we did, he said, among the Vedas, I am the Samaveda, because it can be sung and it had some extra qualities. And among the Devas, he was the Indra. We all know Indra is the king of... Among the senses, I am the mind. Mind is the one that, controls the senses. And I'm the intelligence among the living being, Chetana. And Chetana was a very deep word, being conscious. So now we go to the next verse, verse 23. Rudranam Shankaraschasmi Vittesho Yaksha Rakshasam. Vittesho Yaksha Rakshasam Vasunam Pavakaschasmi Meru Shikharinamaham. Rudranam. Among the Rudras, and we will see who are the Rudras and Shankara. Everybody knows Shankar Bhagwan. Shankar. Among the Rudras, I'm Shankar. That's what he said. Cha and Asmi, I am Vittesha. Vittesha is Kuber. The one who's like a Khajanchi of this, heaven, not heavens actually. He's of Yakshas and Rakshasas, and we'll see how very interesting. Kuber. But everybody's heard of Kuber. Kuber ka khajana. And Yakshara Rakshasam. Yakshas and Rakshasas. So why is Krishna Bhagavan talking about Yakshas and Rakshasas? We'll see. Because remember, God is everywhere. He doesn't want us... we may be looking at ye wo hai Bhagwan ke liye sab barabar. He will, he represent everybody. Vasunam, among the Vasus. And we'll see who the Vasus are. Pavakaha. And that Pavaka means Agni. That's another name of Agni. Cha and Asmi, I am Meru. Now this we must heard of Mount Meru. We will see what it actually means. It's instead of a physical plane, it's more a spiritual plane. Shikhiranam, mountains. Actually, Shikhar means mountain top. उस माउंटेन का शिखर, तो जो ऊंचे ऊंचे माउंटेन होते हैं ना जिसमें हाई पीक्स होती है, उसको बोला गया ये. Because sometimes the translation becomes you lose it what they are trying to say. खाली mountain बोला तो there is another one when he say among the stationary things I am Himalayas. So he talked in the Himalaya in a slightly different way, even though it's a mountain. But here more emphasis is on the one that has a shikhar, some kind of peak, high peaks. That's what we have to think about. Aham is I. Okay. So he says that among the Rudras, I am the Shankar. So he say, ये शंकर भगवान तो मैंने सुना था कि भाई ब्रह्मा विष्णु महेश वाले शंकर, रुद्र का क्या हुआ? So the classifications are different in different Puranas, and there is a lot of reason behind it. So we have to think about what is this Rudras. There are 11 Rudras, it seems, huh? And these are all called Rudras. So I'll tell you a little more about it, but just to give an idea that, some of the Puranas, Shankar is a one specific kind of job and all has been given over there, okay? But the word Shankar is Sam Karoti, it is Shankara. So it's like the one which does auspicious. Auspiciousness se Shankar ko connect kiya gaya. Who is the most auspicious? Even though Shankar Bhagwan ka jo वेशभूषा है ना, वो वर्ल्ड के दृष्टि से देखा जाए तो इनऑस्पिशियस जैसा दिखाई देता है. सांप को गले में लगा लिया, भस्म, चिता की भस्म, जहाँ dead bodies are being burnt, he picks up that and puts it. लेकिन वो शंकर के ऊपर जाते ही सब auspicious हो जाता है. So he's trying to give you a message that nothing is inauspicious in the world. Death and birth is this, same thing kind of from the Vedantic perspective. So auspiciousness is the main thing over here. Most auspicious actually, Shankar Bhagwan. And then Rudra, usually usko jo ek Rudra roop bolte hai na, it is supposed to be like a terrible roop of Bhagwan. Because Shankar Bhagwan ko ek tarah se jab he wants to annihilate something, तो एकदम रौद्र रूप धारण कर लेते हैं. और वो फेमस स्टोरी भी है कि जब वो शादी करने के लिए गए और वो अपने वही ओरिजिनल फॉर्म में गए तो उनकी जो होने वाली सास थी वो तो बेहोशी हो गई. एंड देन सभी लोगों उनके बारातियों ने बोला ये क्या कर रहे हो. ऐसा कोई जाता है क्या शादी करने के लिए. फिर इट्स अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग स्टोरी दैट विष्णु भगवान मेक्स हिम इनटू अ वेरी हैंडसम एंड जैसे बोलते हैं ना दूल्हे को सजाया गया, फिर वो सब बहुत खुश हो गए, इतना हैंडसम है. पहले सब देख के बेहोश हो गए, भाग गए सब. उनकी सखियां सब डर के मारे भाग गई स्नेक वेक देख के. एनीवे, so that's what Rudra means. The word Rudra means terrible. And then what main thing about destruction, is a god of destruction. It's not a negative destruction by any means. Very auspicious annihilation, because in the world, without annihilation, you cannot create. That's the law. कोई नया घर बनाना होता है तो पुराने को तोड़ना पड़ता है कि नहीं. So, and this manifestation, maintenance, and creation, it's a continuous cycle. If one of them gets messed up, the cycle cannot continue. So to create new thing, you have to annihilate. So that's how we have to see. It's a very auspicious annihilation. And without dying, new birth cannot happen. Whichever way you want to look at it. So that's a very, very kind of important point that we have to understand. Even if somebody was saying that you eat apple, it gives you nourishment, it becomes part of your body, but what are you doing to the apple? Apple is getting killed. In a very crude manner, I'm saying. So that's what it is. It's a cycle. And when we read Swamiji's commentary, then he's going to put some more points about it. So basically the annihilation is to rise something more wonderful, more beautiful, that's how we have to look at it. So here he's talking about the power which annihilates and gives rise to something more auspicious. So that is Shankar. So he is it, Bhagwan's Vibhuti. And then Nikhilanandji was saying that how we have so many hymns also, Chidananda Rupa, Shivoham, Shivoham, that auspiciousness is connected with the Brahman also. So it is part of Brahman only. So this is how we have to look at this auspicious thing, So now the 11 Rudras. So, if you I'll just say it fast if somebody is interested, So the 11 Rudras which are mentioned in the Puranas are Shiv, Shankar, Neelkant, Ishan, Vijay, Bhim, Ugra, Kapali, Ajpad, or Ahir Bruhan or something like that. Some of them we have not even heard about them. Sabke alag-alag thoda sa different jobs hoega sabka. So according to the Puranas, what is their jobs of all these Rudras? ब्रह्मांड का संतुलन बनाए रखना. Have a balance in the universe. दुष्टों का संहार करना. Kill all the bad guys. तपस्वियों की रक्षा करना. We know that all the stories. And then even to guide people, मार्गदर्शन करना, कल्याण करना and all that. And then out of these 11th Rudra, Shankar is the main, Pramukh, and he, because his job is annihilation. बाकी लोगों का अलग अलग जॉब दे दिया होगा. शंकर के ही कई रूप समझ लो, महादेव के कई रूप, whichever way you want to look at it, And then another point is that on one hand he does annihilate, but ये अत्यंत प्रिय और व्यापक रूप है among the Rudras, okay? कल्याण करने वाला, सौम्य मतलब एकदम करुणामय, इसलिए भोलेनाथ बोला गया उनको, right? He gets easily उनको खुश किया जा सकता है. एंड लोक हितकारी, ज्ञान और वैराग्य के प्रतीक, बिकॉज हमेशा उनको मेडिटेशन में दिखाया है. ही सिट्स इन द मेडिटेशन, वैराग्य के प्रतीक. भक्त वत्सल, सो भक्तों की रक्षा करना, दुष्टों का नाश करना, वेदों और धर्म की रक्षा करना, तपस्वियों को वरदान देना. सो दीज आर आई थिंक वेरी वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग थिंग्स अबाउट शंकर भगवान. सो दैट ही सेड दैट अमंग ऑल द रुद्रास I am Shankar. Now you understood why he said that, because he's the main guy out of all these 11 Rudras. His job is the main one. So after that he said, among yakshas and rakshasas, ये कहाँ से आ गए भाई? तो उनकी भी विभूति है. Okay? उनमें कौन हूँ मैं? I am the वित्तेश, जो वित्त मतलब मनी, वित्तेश मतलब जो बॉस होता है मनी का, खजांची, treasurer, जिसके पास सारा माल है, that's the person. So how Nikhilanandji was explaining that since Bhagwan is everywhere and good, bad, everything. So he said that Rakshas or Yaksh, we can learn from them also, he said. He's not saying that go become Rakshasa, nothing like that. But just to get an idea that who are these guys. Rakshas abhi bhi hote hain, So even in the negative things in the world, we can learn something from them. And then he gave a very interesting incident. जब रामायण की बात आती है तो सब लोग कैसे रावण तो एकदम bad guy, like even children, whenever they show him, terrible, absolutely, and he did so many bad things and this and that. But whoever knows Ramayana maybe know about this or maybe not, I'm not sure. But it seems that after Ramchandraji killed Ravan, and he was not killed, he shot him, and he was on his deathbed. Okay? When he's on the deathbed and he's like going to die but not dead yet, can still talk and all that, it seems that Ramchandraji told Lakshman, go and learn something from him. Lakshman, I think Veeraji knows, she's shaking her. Hey, Ravan. Even Lakshman was like, what's going on? So, but Ramchandra ne bola, he also respects his older brother like a god only. So he said, okay, जाना तो पड़ेगा, अभी बोल दिया तो वो बड़े अभिमान के साथ ना, ये क्या सिखाएगा मुझे? He went and stood near his head. So Ravan didn't say anything. So he came back, ऐसे इसको कुछ नहीं आता है रामचंद्र. I'm just उसको थोड़ा मसाला लगा के बोल रही हूँ ये स्टोरी. इसको कुछ नहीं आता है. तो रामचंद्र ने बोला नहीं, you are a student there. Don't go with the arrogance. Go with humility. Then you will learn something. So then he goes and stands near his feet, does his pranam and says, I want to learn something from you. Please teach me. So it seems that and a couple of interesting things he told him was that, don't ever underestimate your enemy. That's what I did. I thought ye mana aur ye bandar kya kar lenge mera. See, dekh mera bhi haal dekh. So don't ever estimate your enemy. And then he said, don't ever underestimate a disease and fire. I mean, such disease, because we saw what happened with the COVID. One little virus that nobody could see, sabko ghar mein bitha diya. For a couple years, not even just like a month or two. Don't underestimate a disease. Don't underestimate a spark. It can burn your whole house, whole nagar. We saw what happened in LA. And there was a Chicago fire, it seems, burnt for months or something crazy. So I'm just telling you that wo Rakshas hote hue bhi, because he was actually a very learned person. Certain traits in him, later on he did some bad things and all that. Otherwise he was a Mahagyani and all that. So these Rakshasas also, some personalities were quite amazing. And Raja Bali also is supposed to be, very high up there. And he was Rakshas Kulke the wo bhi, and things like that. So that's what it was. So उनमें जो राक्षसों में और ये यक्ष कौन होते हैं, इनको सेम कैटेगरी में डाला गया है. बिकॉज भगवान ने ज़्यादा नहीं, नेगेटिव के बारे में बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं बोला है, मगर फिर भी जस्ट टू गिव एन आइडिया दैट आई एम एवरीवेयर. सो ये यक्ष जो होते थे ना, वो मैं थोड़ा उसका पता किया कि क्या, बिकॉज आई डिडंट नो एग्जैक्टली हु द यक्षास वर. सो दीज आर सम एस्ट्रल पावर्स. They are not of this world, astral world. And the way the Hindi में ऐसे describe किया, रहस्यमयी आकाशीय शक्तियाँ जो धन, सौंदर्य और गुप्त विज्ञान से जुड़ी हुई हैं, and there are like things that are not very obvious in the world, and it could be connected with the mental power, some different kind of power, beauty, health, happiness and all that. And it has a very secretive tantric urja, people who follow tantras and things like that. And then it can also give more ayu to you, amrutatvam, but not like we know that body ek din to mare gayi, not like that, but giving little more age to you and all that, extra years. And then also if whoever heard the Mahabharata story, that that Shikhandi went to fight, in the war, and that's how Bhishma Pitamaha, फानों की शैया पे लेट गए. तो at that time उसने यक्ष का सहारा लेके this Shikhandini was like a woman and man mixed kind of thing, but he became more a man for a day, and because the law was that women cannot go and fight in the war. So he said, look, I have become a man now today. Yeah, so उसने यक्ष का सहारा लिया था, just to connect that, and so that's what these yakshas are, and rakshasas कौन है? शक्ति और भोग और भौतिक ऐश्वर्य के प्रतीक, so जो उनका जो treasure है वो कुबेर है. but राक्षसों के बारे में certain things were very kind of interesting, that the word rakshas may have several different meaning, and one of the meanings है जो खुद की रक्षा कर सकता है, उसको राक्षस बोला गया. They are self dependent. वो जल्दी से किसी को सहायता मांगने के लिए नहीं जाते हैं. They are like very strong and all that, and they have collected lot of powers and all that. So I didn't even think about that. So जब भी देवताओं और राक्षसों की लड़ाई हुई ना, तो राक्षसों ने देवताओं को हरा दिया और जाके उसके सिंहासन पे बैठ गए, और देवता भागे भागे जाते हैं ब्रह्मा जी के पास, विष्णु जी के पास सहायता मांगने के लिए. Which I never thought. I said, yeah, that's very interesting that जो खुद की रक्षा कर सकते हैं वो है राक्षस. Very powerful these guys are, कम नहीं है ये. और दूसरी कहानी हम सबको मालूम है कि जब when they wanted to churn the ocean to get the treasures out, the devatas realized that इनमें इतनी ताकत नहीं है कि खुद कर ले. तो फिर शिव जी या ब्रह्मा जी, I don't remember, one of them ने उनको सजेस्ट किया, जाके उनसे हाथ मिलाओ, साथ में करो, तभी तुम्हारा काम होगा, अकेले तुम कुछ नहीं कर पाओगे, तुमको राक्षस की शक्तियां चाहिएगी. So see, there are some positive sides to this Rakshasas also, So उनका जो treasurer है इन दोनों का, कुबेर. So what is his role? इन दोनों के बीच में संतुलन और नियंत्रण करने वाले इस कुबेर, धन के धर्म संगत प्रयोग के प्रतीक. So in a way, even though he's a treasurer of the Rakshasa, उनमें भी कुछ values होते होंगे. बोलते हैं ना, चोर भी होता है ना, आपस में जब बांटना होता है ना, तो they want to be honest with each other. चोरी का माल लेके आएंगे फिर honest. So anyway, धर्म संगत प्रयोग के प्रतीक. And so that's why भगवान, because he's supposed to keep the balance, and धन और वैभव और शक्ति के नियंता है कुबेर, तो इसलिए भगवान ने उसमें भी अपनी विभूति दिखाई. कि किसी को बहुत मन हो कि भाई कोई नेगेटिव चीज में देखे, तो चलो कुबेर को देख लो. सभी को खुश कर दिया भगवान ने. You can pick your favorite ones. So this was about them. So interesting things about them. Next he said, among the Vasus, पावका अग्नि. So ये वसु का क्या चक्कर है, right? वसु भी is very interesting. Who are the Vasus? प्राकृतिक तत्वों और ऊर्जाओं और जीवन की आधारशिलाओं का प्रतिनिधित्व करते हैं. This is a very high Hindi. 8 वसु होते हैं. प्राकृतिक तत्व means all the elemental things, okay? And there are 8 वसुस जो है ना, उनका नाम है धारा, अनिल. अनिल भाई आपका नाम भी है उसमें वसु में, तो ये वायु के देवता is अनिल, okay? धारा is पृथ्वी के देवता. Anal is अग्नि के देवता. Pavaka is the same. So Agni, Anal and Pavaka is the same. Apa, you have heard of this word in Bhagavad Gita. Apa means jal के देवता, पानी. Then Pratyush, जो सुबह की लाली आती है ना, उसका भी एक देवता है. जो before the sunrise happens, that the whole sky becomes red. So वो प्रभात को, उसको उस टाइम को बोलते हैं प्रभात, उसका भी एक देवता है प्रत्युष. ध्रुव इज दैट, ध्रुव तारा जो बोलते हैं ना, स्थिरता का प्रतीक. इट इज लाइक अ, वी नो दैट इट इज ऑलवेज एट वन स्पॉट इन द स्काई. सोम इज चंद्रमा, उसको रसों का स्वामी बोला गया. दीज आर ऑल द वसुस. प्रभास, लास्ट वन, प्रकाश, तेज के देवता, बिकॉज वी when the sun comes out, प्रकाश हर जगह फैल जाता है, तो प्रकाश को वसु बताया गया है. So the way I'm looking at it, it's a different classification of the things, functions that are happening in the world. They have personified them, and Bhagwan can do anything. If somebody prays to a Vasu, maybe they can manifest themselves and come. I don't know. Up to your imagination. But ये सृष्टि के आधार हैं. And दूसरा बताया गया विश्व की रचना में सहायक. Means ब्रह्मा विष्णु महेश के हेल्पर्स हैं ये. जैसे बोलते हैं ना, एक बड़ा डिपार्टमेंट होता है, then they give powers to the smaller one, it gets kind of watered down a little bit. So from that perspective, these are all the functions that are happening in the world that we need. These are the symbols for that. And
so why is Krishna called Vasudev?
That is because his father's name was Vasudev. So that's why the Vasudev ke bete Vasudev. He was not a Vasu by any means.
Yeah.
You know who was the Vasu? Vasu was Bhishma Pitama. Was one of the Vasus. In fact, कुछ ऐसी स्टोरी है कि वो उनको श्राप मिल गया वसुओं को. तो फिर रिमेम्बर उसने गंगा ने 7 पुत्र को डुबा दिया था. Do you guys know that, right? Whoever knows the Mahabharata story, that she married this Dushyant नाम था उनका ना. दुष्यंत से शादी की और दुष्यंत को he fell in love with Ganga and she said I will marry you. Shantanu. I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, Shantanu. Thank you for correcting. So Shantanu से शादी की और उसने बोला कि don't ever ask me any questions. You can marry me, but let me do what I want. उस जमाने में भी ऐसा होता था. अभी बोलते हैं आजकल भी नहीं मानेंगे लोग ऐसे तो. You can't tell me. And वो बेचारा पागल इतना हो गया था प्रेम में, उसने हाँ बोल दिया. Then every time the child was born, she took it and डुबा दिया. After 7, he was horrified. He said, what kind of woman are you? And then he asked her the question, who are you and why are you doing that? So she said, okay, the 8th one मैं नहीं डुबाऊंगी, वो Bhishma Pitama हुए. Who kind of, did all that. And she told the story that they were the 8 Vasus who got some shrap that you have to be born on the earth. And all of them pleaded, we don't want to go on the earth because dukkhalaya ashashvatam, right? Like Bhagavan Krishna said, they don't want to come on the earth. So they pleaded Mother Ganga that you come on the earth, give us birth and send us back immediately. But the 8th Vasu ne kuch zyada gadbad kiya tha, so he had to stay here and suffer a few things and all, whatever. So that was the story. So anyway, so coming back to Vasus, ये न धार्मिक का प्रतीक है, ये इनका पूजन भी होता है and usually हवन यज्ञ और पितृ कार्य में इनका because remember वो Agni is the one that the most powerful out of all the Vasus in some ways, because it does the job of when the हवन होता है ना, तो अग्नि से बोलते हैं वो messenger है which takes it to the higher world, right? So ये अग्नि यज्ञ का माध्यम है. सेतु बोला गया. सेतु means like a bridge between this world and the next world or the higher world or the astral world, And Agni is also urjavan, a lot of energy is there. Tejasvi. It is very bright, and it has a power to transform things. I mean, think about it. If you take a gold and you can melt it and make the ornaments, right? Transformation power Agni has. So this we can relate to all these things. And then बुरी चीजों को जलाने का प्रतीक है, And then we know that we as Hindus, हमारा तो मरने के टाइम पे भी अग्नि से हमारा दाह संस्कार होता है. So it's such an important thing out of all the Vasus. That's why भगवान ने बोला कि and the Vasus को ना देवता of seasons भी बोला गया है. There are different classifications, just to give you an idea. So भगवान ने बोला I am the Agni among the Vasus. And then हिंदी में बोला गया, it's nice, it sounds like a poetry. अग्नि ऊष्मा प्रकाश और जीवन शक्ति देती है, और जैसे how do you relate this to भगवान? जब भगवान अपनी विभूतियों से संसार को ऊर्जा देते हैं, with all these are भगवान्स विभूति. अग्नि जो उन्होंने बताया है, it gives us the power, So and Agni वसुओं में प्रभाव, शक्ति और जीवन का मूल स्रोत है. It's like a main thing among the Vasus. That's why he said that I am Agni among the Vasus. And then one of the other saints who said that Agni also is called mouth of God. When there is a Vishwaroop darshan में हमेशा दिखाते अग्नि निकल रही है उनके मुंह से. And he said that Agni is also within us. The power of fire is connected with speech. You know that for speaking we need energy, so that is connected with it. And a speech is a very important thing in a human life. You know, communicate and all that. And he's saying English में भी बोलते हैं that person gave a fiery speech. So they're अपना वेदांत English language में भी है, you know. So, or he spoke words of fire, you know, when he speaks something like that. So that's what this is. Very interesting, right? Vasu and Agni relationship. Okay. Then last one, it says, among the Shikhiranam, you know, mountains with high peaks, I am Meru, he said. So what is this Meru? So it's kind of interesting, the Meru. Because when we say Meru, there are some mountains that have been given name Meru in India and in Nepal or something. But that's not what they are talking about. He's saying, because when we talk about Mount Meru, it's some kind of a spiritual abode. But what they are trying to depict is like a mountain-like structure, Mount Meru, and the top of it is the abode of Brahma. Okay? And so the peaks are as though just imaginary mountains from jo ja raha hai idhar se, earth se, in a different realm. So the creator, Brahma ji, is unka abode is on the top, and the lower part is on the earth. Imaginary mountain, huh? So this is, it's on one hand, the upper part obviously is a Brahma lok hai, so it is repository of all the jewels and all that beautiful. Your imagination can go wild. You know? how you want to depict this, you know. And then it has a spiritual and cosmological significance, this mountain, you know. And then it is also called the center of the universe. Because you cannot have a physical mountain on the earth and call it a center of a universe. Obviously, that doesn't make any sense. But a spiritual abode, which is the center of the universe, and it's kind of a center of physical and metaphysical and spiritual universe. That's how the connection is there between the spiritual world. It's connected through this mountain. And, you know, it's mentioned in the Puranas, Mahabharata, Ramayana, and they have described the Mount Meru. And, or you can say that this Mount Meru represent the path of enlightenment. That from the physical plane, how you rise up, you know, and it's the towering height is symbolic of the spiritual journey from material existence, from the base to the divine consciousness. So that now it makes sense. And, you know, it seems that I don't know much about what is mentioned in Jainism and Buddhism. It seems that they also talk about Mount Meru, or, you know. And it is the abode of gods, and that I already told you about. And then obviously the summit, its peak is associated with divine realms, you know. So that's why Bhagwan said that among the high peaks, I am Mount Meru. You know, now you know why he said it, because there is that connection. So that's what it is. Any question? Any comment?
Yeah, in my book also they're saying this. They're saying the Kuber was actually the brother of Ravan.
Yeah, he was a stepbrother. Yes.
Oh, stepbrother. Okay.
Yeah, the mothers were different.
All of us have these personalities, so we don't want to be a Rakshas. We need to be conscious of being like the Kuber, you know.
Yeah.
And also this Meru, they're saying, as you said, is metaphysically we can also say that Meru is the highest place in our divine consciousness, the cerebrum, where the soul dwells. And also, they call our spinal cord, you know, is also called the Merudand.
Right, you are absolutely right. Very good. Yes, yes, Merudand. So now you know the Meru is used. So even in the yogic thing that the highest is Meru. And okay, that's very nice. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank
So
you
it's
for
saying
that.
the soul is actually, the meaning of this is the soul is actually more powerful of the body of the kingdom, like, So we have to give more importance to the soul, do things which are, taking us more towards soul consciousness.
Yeah, I think great symbolism, yes. And between कुबेर and Ravan, the story is that वो जो विमान था ना जिसमें रामचंद्र जी वापस आए थे वो कुबेर का था. तो ये उसने उसका ले लिया. He threw a tantrum with his dad that I want that विमान. फिर डैड ने नहीं दिया तो फिर लड़ाई वड़ाई करके ले लिया. ऐसे ब्रदर्स में राइवलरी होती है ना. So अपना पावर से उसने उसका चुरा लिया. Anyway, so that was. And now you know why his Lanka was all सोने की लंका. उसका भाई कुबेर था. उसी से बोरो किया होगा सारा. I don't know. I don't know. But that's the connection, yeah. They had the same father but different mother. Yeah.
No, but Ravan was a king also, he conquered so many things.
Yeah, he was a Rishi Putra. He was his,
he was a Rishi Putra.
Yeah, mother was from the Rakshas school. That's all.
Correct.
So, but शुरू में एक आया था एक सीरियल जैसा आया था उसका नाम ही रावण था. मैंने देखा था वो. उसमें रावण के पर्सपेक्टिव से बहुत सी स्टोरीज बताई थी. तो उसमें बताया था कि शुरू में वो बहुत अच्छा था. He was, but
he knew all. That's why.
Yeah, he did a lot of good things.
Brahmin to tha hi wo.
Right.
He just his ego became more bigger than him. That's what.
Yeah, and then it seems that उसका जो मामा था ना वो not मामा उसका नाना उसने ये सारी कॉन्स्पिरेसी की थी. उसने भेजा था अपनी बेटी को कि जाके उससे शादी कर.
Yeah.
Because we need a child who has both Rakshasa and the Rishi ka gun, and then he's the one who's going to become the king. So it is a very interesting, the whole thing. That how they conspired to have this Ravan as a child, and in the beginning the influence of father was more. He उसको यज्ञ तभी तो उसको सारे वेदों का ज्ञाता बताया गया है, because father taught him everything. But then वो नाना को पता चला कि अरे ये तो सब ज्यादा तो ये ऐसा अच्छा आदमी बन रहा है, अभी तो हमारे राक्षसों का क्या होगा. So then उसने मदर को बोला अपना इन्फ्लुएंस लगा इसके ऊपर अभी ज्यादा. So then they उसको मोड़ लिया negativity की तरफ. So the whole thing is very psychological, very interesting story, how it happened, how people try to influence him. So he was more like almost like a puppet in their hand. It's very sad, but he was a puppet in the hands of other people. So,
But didn't he go to heaven? I mean, moksha?
Because he was like Jai Vijay. If you go to the back stories, then more things get revealed. That they were Jai Vijay, the two doorkeepers of Vishnu, who got उनको कर्स मिला था, because उनको अभिमान हो गया था. तो बोला 3 बार तुमको जाना पड़ेगा, या तो तुमको 7 जन्म लेने पड़ेंगे अगर अच्छा बनोगे तो धरती पर. ये सब लोग आना नहीं चाहते हैं वहां से धरती के ऊपर. तो बोला अगर नेगेटिव लाइफ होगी तो 3 मिलेगी. तो जय विजय चोज नेगेटिव लाइफ्स, बिकॉज जल्दी हमको खत्म करके तो तुमको भगवान से दुश्मनी का जैसा बोलना नाटक करना पड़ेगा या जो भी. So it was like a planned thing in some ways. So he came as a Raman. So then उनको उसका that was उनको एंड में तो मोक्ष मिला ही. Then वो उसको कंस भी बनना पड़ा actually. So सब अपना कर्म खत्म करके फाइनली वो वापस वैकुंठ चला गया. अपना थोड़ा पनिशमेंट देना पड़ा सुधारने के लिए.
Some people say he didn't get moksha, though he was killed by Ram, because he took the form of a saint or rishi to kidnap Sita. So that was the worst thing that he could do. He could have kidnapped her, but he shouldn't have taken the form of a saint.
Oh yeah, so there are so many different stories. The whole idea is that किसी ने बोला कि भगवान से अगर दुश्मनी मोल ली ना और सारा टाइम उनके बारे में सोचा तो भी तुमको मोक्ष मिल जाएगा, except your life will be miserable and nobody will keep that child's name as Ravan. Why you want to go on the negative side? Lekin he was obsessing over Ramchandra ji the whole time, obviously. So that connection and obsession will take him to moksha. So there are all kinds of stories, but it depends on what you want to believe. India mein there are so many different aspects of the story and all, but they are interesting. They tie up with each other and all that. Let's see. We can read the commentary. Any volunteers to read? Meera ji, of course.
And among the Rudras, I am Shankara. Among the Yakshas and Rakshasas, I am the Lord of Wealth, Kubera. Among the Vasus, I am Pavaka, Agni. And among the mountains, I am the Meru. O Rudras, I am Shankara. In reading these portions, modern students must remember that Gita was especially sung for the treatment of one particular Arjun. No individual can stand apart from the influence of his age. Every one of us, whether we like it or not, is a child of our own age and a product of the popular ideas that are floating in our times. Krishna was constrained to talk to Arjuna in his language. Traditionally, Arjuna was a product of the Vedic lore, and therefore Krishna could make references to what the soldier already knew. Here again is a brilliant example which refers to the contents of the Vedas.
So see, now we have to understand this. He's talking to Arjuna, because someone said, why did Krishna Bhagavan use all these words? Because Arjun understood what Vasus are. हम लोग को थोड़ा research करके पता करना पड़ा. He already knew it. When they're Rudra, he knew. There are, there's many Rudras, 8 Vasus and 11 Rudra, he knew. So he's talking to him in his language. And वैसे भी, if you see the whole Bhagavad Gita, उन्होंने example भी सारे war वाले जैसे दिए. अरे तलवार निकाल के attachment को काट दे, and things like that. And, उसको adjectives भी वैसे ही दिए. Paratampa, something word. That you are the scorcher of the enemy. You can annihilate your enemy and things like that. So he's talking to Arjuna. So Swamiji just want us to keep in mind that he's talking to him in the language that he understood. If Krishna Bhagavan comes today on the earth, he might talk about AI or something. Give an example that among the AIs, I am this, jo bhi jo best hoega, what type of. That's what it is. But I think to me, when I went and researched all these things, who are Rudras, who are Vasus, they were very interesting. It has a meaning. Then I had no problem in understanding what they are trying to say. These are all the different powers, Shaktis that are happening in the universe. That's all it is. And, you can't deny those things that are happening in the universe,
A team of deities of destruction together constitute the Rudras in the Vedika belief. The foreign missionaries who sneak into this country misquote and misrepresent our Vedic traditions because of their shameless ignorance and perhaps in their biological incapacity to conceive such incomparable ideas. The tragic history of our country during the last 200 years gave these distorters of our ancient culture a respectable place in our society, and under the direct patronage of our foreign rulers, they scramble to be the teachers of our children. The missionary colleges and schools have the dangerous dens for minting out counterfeits of educated Hindus. We are all at present representing in ourselves this forged wealth, which from a distance looks as education, but on careful analysis, it is bound to be useless for transaction.
Swamiji's all frustration and how he felt coming out over here. And I'm sure that our generation can identify with a lot of this, that how we had no clue about all the Vedantic things, and we thought it's all hodgepodge. And, it's a foreign mischief that if you don't understand what it is and then you feed half-truths, and couple of generations went like that. Even my parents, they didn't study all the Vedanta and all that. And they would just say, just do this puja and that's it. No question asked, भाई क्यों करते हैं, कैसे करते हैं, क्या उसका purpose क्या है, किसी ने नहीं बताया, कि क्या करते हैं. So we were victim of this kind of thing, but now, thank God that there are so many organizations and all, and the Vedic studies are becoming more popular now, and you can see that, they are very scientific, very understandable. You spend a little time and you can connect to it beautifully. That's what they're trying to say. So I'm sure when he came down, he faced a lot of opposition, and I think sometimes when the foreigners try to analyze and translate and all that, they can make quite a big mess out of it. Sometimes you even translate the word, it doesn't come out right. Shraddha ko khali faith bola, it won't come out right? And even Chetana, we were discussing that there is no, conscious bola, so people start thinking it's consciousness. No, it's not that. Chetana has its own meaning. You can write an essay on it, So that, we have to go more deep into it. And we are lucky that we are culturally connected to India, so we can understand these things faster, because we have grown up with a lot of these things. We just don't know the true meaning, but with these saints and sages, their commentaries and all, we can understand it now. I feel very thrilled about it,
The concept of Rudra as the deity of destruction is to be recognized by every student of life, because destruction is a necessary precedent to every subsequent construction. The flower must die away to yield its place for the fruit to mature. The fruit must perish for the seeds to come out. The seeds must rot to bring forth the seedling. Thus, in every progress, there is a continuous stream of destruction. This is recognized by the subtlest thinkers that were ever born among men, called the rishis, and in their full understanding, they fearlessly respected and adored the blessed deity of creative destruction, Shankara.
So Swamiji explained it absolutely beautifully, right? That
Yes.
to do any kind of construction, destruction is not negative. If you from that perspective, कोई आके ऐसे bomb फोड़ के सब तोड़ दे or just for the sake of it, that is called destruction. But for a purpose, if you're doing it, it is a necessary thing. That's what he's trying to say. So that's why this whole symbolism, because when you just say like this, oh, Shiva is a symbol of destruction, it sounds so negative. But uske piche hai kya, then we know that why it is so important. Without that, you can't even do construction.
I am the treasurer of wealth, Kuber, among the Yakshas and the Rakshasas. The chancellor of the exchequer in the heaven is described in the Puranas as Kuber, a monstrous, ugly creature, 3-footed, fat and short, with a spreading belly, a small head, and 8 protruding teeth. The divine cashier is helped by Yakshas and Rakshasas, an equally ugly, materialistic, heartless brood in protecting their treasures. It is interesting to note how the Indian rishis were typically against capitalism and how they cartooned the master of wealth in such a grotesque caricature, so ugly that it cannot bring about even an indulgent smile to our lips.
Swamiji so I had no clue that when they depict Kuber, this is how they depict it. Because मैंने कभी कुबेर का वो, I think maybe that we never did any kind of ritual with the Kuber, so that's why I didn't know. But now we know that when our Rishi Muni usko ऐसे not very pretty looking sight, I guess. Anyway, we can read the next paragraph. It'll explain this kind of symbolism.
Is the extension at his belt an unavoidable symptom of his hoarded wealth? Is the third leg only a substantial walking stick without which the rich, fat keeper of wealth cannot drag himself from his money bags to his dining table? Are the rest of the 24 teeth worn out by his overeating? These are the doubts that come to anyone who reads carefully the elaborate description of this banker of heaven's wealth. In short, our rishis entertained a disgust for the low paper toys of wealth, and they had nothing but supreme contempt for those who are living upon the sap of the country to fatten and gorge themselves with an unnecessary amount of human fodder.
So I think that he's just saying that, just accumulating just physical wealth and just money, but not worrying about the virtues and all that. The Rishi Muni didn't care about it. So, unko matlab, nobody wanted to be like, once you see that, hey, I don't want to be in that shoe. So, whichever way you want to look at it. Yeah.
Of the Vasus, I am Pavaka. There are 8 Vasus, and they are Vedika deities presiding over the seasons. In Chandogya Upanishad, it is described that the month of these Vasus is fire. Here, the word mouth may be conceived as the instrument of enjoyment and experience. Therefore, it means here that the self is the very source from which we gain all our experiences of all seasons.
So here Swamiji said they're presiding over the season, the 8 Vasus. And basically, when you say season, and he's going to talk about more elaborately in the next, why there are so many 8 seasons, because वैसे तो 6 होती है, 2 are the other, our mind का season, whether it's happy or sad and all that. Very interesting. But like I was saying that Agni is supposed to be the mouth of God. यहाँ पर उन्होंने बोला mouth of the Vasu. And it's an instrument of enjoyment and experience. That's another symbolism behind it, because the self is a very source from which we gain our experience. So you can connect it this way also, about the fire. Why he said that I'm the fire among all the Vasus, very important. Meeraji.
The 6 seasons.
Wait, Meeraji, Meenaji has a question. So
sure.
I had a question because somewhere I read the 8 were represented by the 5 elements plus the mind, intellect, and ego.
That's also very good. Yeah. So,
that. And the fire, to me, it was used in my micro level way. Is within the digestion also takes place.
True.
Your fire is needed. Secondly, fire is purification also.
Yeah.
That's what they talked about. And that's why they gave so much importance to the fire in this one.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of the, explanations.
No, very good. And I always enjoy the multiple explanations, because that's how Bhagavad Gita is. If you start researching on one particular thing, you will find different facets, and all of them are fascinating. And it kind of deepens your understanding. So whatever you said, even that classification is very good. The 5 elements are the mind, intellect, ego, and the fire, why it is important for the digestion and it purification and all that. And some of the points about the purification, I had brought it earlier also. And even हम लोग सारे sacred चीजों में fire ही use हवन होता है ना अपने इंडिया में, and शादी में भी. अगर वैदिक रिचुअल से शादी करो without fire, we cannot even take our vows.
नहीं तो अपन दीपक भी तो
दीपक जलाते हैं. Exactly. सारे हमारा spiritual thing fire से ही हम represent करते हैं. And there are other kind of true cooking also. The outside fire, inside fire, both are important for that digestion. I was going to say other religions also give a lot of importance to fire. There is that Parsis. उनका तो मतलब they don't let anybody go in their mandir called Agyari. I'm from Mumbai, and a lot of Parsis are there in Mumbai, so I've never seen Agyari from inside, but I'm told that they don't have any other deity, they have a fire. That is their main thing that they worship, is fire. So उनका तो भगवान ही fire है. So
yeah,
fire.
because fire takes it higher. The flame, that's what it denotes. It takes you higher. It's going up.
Yes, it's going.
Yeah, Christianity also, they burn candles.
Exactly, Christianity also burns. So I think fire का सभी में हर जगह है. Or I mean, fire is a one that keeps us alive. जो जब हम लोग मर जाते हैं तो बोलते हैं ठंडा हो गया उसका शरीर, ऐसा भी बोलते हैं हिंदी में, right? ठंडा हो गया means गया. Fire element is gone means you're dead. That's how the doctors find out you're dead. Besides the breath. Because sometimes, people wake up also. Anyway. So you're right. Yeah, those are very good points that you brought, Meenaji.
The 6 seasons which the world outside gives us, and the 2 seasons which the mind supplies us with, namely joy and sorrow, together constitute the 8 seasons mentioned here. Even the springtime flowers will be shedding tears for us if at that time we are in a tragic bereavement, while even the naked trees of the autumn season will be quivering with joy for us, if in that season we have a joy of success, unexpected and complete. Therefore, the 6 external seasons, and all of them are experienced by us only when we are under the grace of our own consciousness within.
Beautiful explanation, no?
Very
That there are
much.
6 नहीं 8 seasons है with the joy and sorrow. And अभी हमको पूछना चाहिए तुम्हारे मन का मौसम कैसा है? Right? मन में खुशी है या गम है? उसके हिसाब से तुमको दुनिया दिखाई देगी. Right? So true.
Very true.
So true that you can have the most beautiful thing outside, but if you're not feeling good, nothing is going to matter at that point, and vice versa. You know, if you are happy, then even you can handle so many things, even if it's negative outside. So I think very beautifully Swamiji said how 8 seasons are, 2 are these, and then the last portion he said that therefore the 6 external seasons and all of them are experienced by us only when we are under the grace of our own consciousness within. That is the connection, and that's why Bhagwan mentioned this. Navasus.
Of all the peaks, I am Meru, a mythological mountain believed to be the center of the universe. According to the ancient Hindu geography, is Meru. On top of it lives the divine, and below it lie scattered the 7 islands that constitute the world. Of them, the Jambudvipa is the center, Asia. Meru is conceived as having an altitude of 7,000 to 8,000 miles, and it is described that from its top, the Ganga flows in all directions. This statement has made many believe that it may be the Himalayas, which is not, of course, very unsatisfactory. But we would rather believe it to be a mystical phraseology representing some special field of influence having its base in Jambudvipa and its extent rising up to the peak described above, from where spiritual knowledge flows out in all the 4 sides to bless all of the islands.
So Swamiji has another very beautiful description that just imagine a tall mountain, it's like a center of the universe. Again, it's like a imaginary mountain, you can say, but the whole idea is so beautiful that on the top is the divine realm and then bottom ko Jambudvip bola gaya hai. And these days Jambudvip bola to that means they think it's Asia, whether you want to believe it or not. The whole world you can call it that, not even just one spot. And then how the Ganga is flowing from the top. Ganga is a symbol of jnana, that it's flowing from top to bottom, blessing everybody along the way. So the Gyan ki Ganga bolte na, Gyan ki Ganga comes from your Guru and Guru Parampara, going from higher, and it flows down, continues. So I think this is also very beautiful. But at least we know now what the idea is. It's a spiritual and physical realm connection of it. And the top of it is the best part. That's why he said, among the peaks, I am the Meru. So the poetry continues.
I think because the earth is round, कोई भी एक point आप ले लीजिए that can become the center. So Asia is the center according to this description. और वहाँ जो मेरू mountain है उसमें से तो it could well be the Himalayas जो सबसे ऊपर है, वहाँ से गंगा हर तरफ मतलब कई उसमें निकलती है. It could be that also.
I know, but the main thing is that they are talking about when Krishna Bhagwan talks about the physical world and spiritual world, he's really not talking about a particular region in on the earth anyway. He's talking about a universal thing.
Got it.
So that's why if he makes us happy, we can say that okay, Himalaya is a Mount Meru and all. But Swamiji just wants us to think that will limit it.
Yes.
So basically, if we see that hey, this is a physical realm, and there could be other planets that you have Mount Meru.
No, he says very clearly.
Yeah.
we believe it, rather believe it to be a mystical phraseology,
Yes.
representing some special field of influence.
Yeah,
I see
exactly.
the point.
Like कोई भी चीज को, जैसे हम लोग आजकल वो बोलते हैं ना कि एजुकेशन, नो, फूड में फूड पिरामिड बोलते हैं कि नहीं, that you know these are the base, these are most important thing, and जो उसका इसके सिग्निफिकेंस उल्टा है कि सबसे जो टॉप है वो सबसे फालतू वाली चीज़ है, यू कैन ड्रॉप इट, बट जो नीचे बेस में वो सबसे ज़रूरी है. इधर उल्टा है मेरू माउंटेन. ऑल आई एम सेइंग इज दे वर यूजिंग दिस लैंग्वेजेस टू सेंड अ पॉइंट. उसको ज़्यादा हम लोग स्ट्रेच करेंगे तो विल बी इन ट्रबल. सो इट्स गुड टू जस्ट think of it as a spiritual. When we come to chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita, he's going to talk about a upside down tree as a whole universe. And that's, you know, it's like a pictorial graph that he created, because how to bring the whole universe in Arjuna's mind. So it's a very clever thing, and these days we do it all the time. Graphs, different graphs, a pie chart, and you know, bar graphs and all that, and pictorial bhi karte aajkal. You know, so that's how we have to look at this Mount Meru.
Got it.
A pictorial graph of the spiritual journey of a human. Yeah. Any other question or comment? Okay. So I can close Bhagavad Gita. सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यः मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः. हरिः ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः. हरिः ओम.